I used to be terrible at chess, and that was mostly because I made too many pawn moves. I will teach you here what you need to do instead and how this is going to help you to win so many more games. So for the opening, trust me, we just have to follow opening principles. We don't need to memorize any theory, we don't need to play some type of trap or dubious gambit, no. We just put a pawn in the center, I look to develop my pieces, my knight, my bishop, and I'm just looking to castle. Very simple, very basic, but this is more than enough to reach a 2000 rating. So please believe me, this is what we need to do. Okay, they play knight f6 and they attack our pawn. And you should really try during your middle games, the middle game starts once we have castled, to follow this strategy that I will teach you now. So this strategy is called CCTO. And we want to combine that strategy with also not making too many pawn moves, and then you will have incredible results. So what does this mean? First, of course, we need to have a look at what they are doing before I can really go into the strategy, because we need to always check out their move first before we think about our moves. So they are attacking the pawn. I will just solve this by pushing my pawn to d3. And I will talk a little bit about the pawn moves first. It is very important that you only try to move your e pawn, your d pawn, and your c pawn. Those three pawns are the ones that we will be using during this game, especially during the middle game. The other ones, if we can, we want to let them just sit on the starting squares, unless if there is a very obvious reason why we need to push them to avoid a checkmate or avoid losing material. But in general, you only want to think about these types of moves with the e pawn, d pawn, and c pawn, and that will save you so many potential blunders. Okay. So they castled. Why to play? So whenever it is your turn, you should just go through my 4-step strategy. The first thing you need to do is you need to look at every single possible check that you have. We have a check here. We can sacrifice a bishop for a pawn. Very bad move, but yes, we have a check there. We won't play it. We won't play useless checks. Then we need to have a look at every capture we can play. Yes, we have a capture. That is a capture. We just looked at it. And also knight takes e5 as a capture. But again, you would just lose a knight. We won't play it. Then we need to have a look at every single threat. And what is a threat? A threat means that we are threatening to win material. We are threatening to checkmate. Or we are threatening to do some type of tactic, like a fork, for example. So the question is, do we really have any threats here? I'm not super sure if there is really a threat. I think the only threat could potentially be attacking one of their pieces, especially this bishop, which is unprotected here. We might have some threat to attack that. And if you go through CCT, checks, captures, threats, and you don't find anything, you go to the final stage, which is the O for optimize. Optimize means we want to move our pieces from the back rank, or we want to make a pawn move, but we want to play a pawn move with the C pawn, the D pawn, or the E pawn. So if you use that strategy, you will have amazing results. The second thing I wanted to say is also, you should try to avoid creating a completely identical position. So if I play knight to c3 and they play pawn to d6, this is completely identical, which means super boring games. There is almost no way to win this as white. It's just super boring. I really don't recommend this. We need to try to play a move that our opponent cannot copy. So what could that be? Knight to d2. They cannot copy this. Or maybe pawn to c3. We could also play that. They can also not copy that because their knight is in the way. So actually I am going to play pawn to c3 because when I was looking at my checks, captures, threats, I noticed that maybe at some point I play d4, and that would be a threat on the bishop. They push the pawn, they attack my bishop, we need to respond. Checks, captures, we have a capture and it solves the problem, so I am going to just play that capture. Okay, and they move the knight here. I thought they were going to recapture, but they didn't. I thought they were going to play like knight takes d5, something like that. They move here with the knight. Okay. So every single time your opponent makes a move, very important, forget about your own plan for a little bit and think first, is there really a problem with their move? Do we need to react to it first? Well, I don't like losing a bishop for a knight. In general, that is really not what I want. I don't like losing bishops for knights. Because bishops are usually more useful, especially here with a quite an open center. So I think I'm just going to move my bishop. Where could I move to? I could move to here, but then they can still take me. Or I could move to the b5 square. And I think that looks okay. I could potentially move to the b5 square. What we could also do, I just noticed, is maybe we could play b4. We could maybe fork the two pieces, but it's not really a fork since they can just take our knight or bishop, and then if we recapture, they can just move back with the bishop. We could definitely play that, I think, but I'm going to focus on the simple chess first, which is to move our bishop, and we still have the option of playing that fork in the future. Okay, they attack our bishop again, so I am just going to move it, and my bishop is perfectly fine. And now you can also see why it's pretty useful that we played that pawn to c3, because this entire maneuver has now ended up with us having a bishop on c2. And we still didn't have to make any crazy pawn moves. My opponent already moved a lot of pawns. And I will show you here why moving so many pawns is actually bad. So my opponent moved a lot of pawns, and every pawn move leaves behind a weakness, and it's pretty easy to figure out what the weakness is. This pawn was protecting that square. It has moved, so that means this square is protected only one time. This pawn here that they had was protecting the light square. They moved it twice, which means that this light square is no longer protected. You can see this is a hole in the position. We might be able to put a piece there in the future, and it can never be attacked by a pawn. The fact that they pushed it so far also leaves behind a weakness here. So my opponent already has this weakness, and this weakness in their position, just by pushing so many pawns, and we don't have a single weakness. Okay, why to play? Checks. Do we have any checks? No. Captures. Do we have captures? Yes. We can just capture a pawn. Okay, let's capture the pawn. Because we don't just capture the pawn, we are also working together with our pieces, attacking that light square that was weakened by their move. Okay, they play rook to e8, so we always need to think about their move first. They are attacking my knight. So the first thing I was looking at is, can I just play knight c6, my move that I wanted to play? The answer is no, because we would be losing a pawn, and then the knight is not really doing much there. So no, we are not going to play knight to c6. Sadly, would have been great if we could play that. We also have to think about their move. So when they attack your piece, you can either block with putting something in between. We cannot do that. You can move. We can definitely do that. Maybe we can also protect our piece. Well, I could move my d-pawn. It is both a threat on the bishop, and it's a protection on my knight. It is a pawn move, but I told you at the beginning, yes, we do want to move our e-pawn, d-pawn, and c-pawn. So that is why I played here my pawn to d4. We do lose the pawn on d5 there, but that was the case anyways. I mean, if I just move back my knight, I also lose that pawn. So there was nothing to do about that. So we now have this position, and they have the queen on d5. Okay. So I always go through the same thinking system. Checks, yes, we have a check now. We can sack a bishop. We need to always look at it. It might be a Greek gift sacrifice or something amazing, like maybe there's a follow-up with the queen and some type of checkmate, but the thing is, it's never really going to work here. We don't have enough pieces into the attack, so no checks for us. Captures, yes, we can capture this, but it's just a trade. It's just trading, and we also end up with very strange pawns. We don't want to play that. So no checks, no captures. Any threats? Well, a threat would be a simple move that attacks a piece. For example, a queen, which is a very high value piece. If we can attack that with one of our pieces, that's an amazing threat. While bishop to b3 is an amazing threat because we are attacking the queen, and if the queen moves somewhere, bam, they lose f7, and they might even lose the rook. So that was an amazing threat that we had in that position. They decided to play rook takes e5, because basically black is already here completely losing because of the moves that they have played. And look at this. We can capture 3 pieces at the same time. The question is, which is the best? Which is the best? I think this is a very good calculation exercise. If we take the queen, they take with the rook. And we gained 9 points of material. We gained a queen in exchange for a knight and a bishop, 6 points. So this wins us 3 points of material. Okay. 3 points of material. If I take this, I get a rook, 5 points of material, but I gave away a minor piece. So we are up 2 points of material, but we still have a threat. We are still threatening the queen, and we are still threatening the knight, and maybe we are even threatening some type of back rank checkmate. So the question is this better? I think yes, if they take our Queen, this would be amazing because we have an attack, we have a back rank potentially, not a checkmate actually because they can go back, but I don't think it's as great. So what I am going to play is I'm going to play this, which because I calculated there that we gained 3 points of material. Sadly, no, we cannot capture the bishop. Well, we can capture the bishop, but we would be losing our queen as well. So that is not really something I wanted to here. Okay. So you can see, following the strategy, I'm already up 4 points of material against the 2200 rated chessbot. Just following this simple strategy, because we are looking at the right moves. Okay, why to play? Checks? No. Captures? Yes. Don't want to play it really, because we would be sacking a queen for a bishop. Not what I want to play. Threats? Do we have any threat? I don't really see any threat, honestly. I don't think there's any threat. So that means we are in the optimize stage. So optimize, E pawn, D pawn, C pawn, but they are fine. We won't be moving pawns. We will be using pieces. So many pieces still on the back rank. Which one to play? Honestly, it doesn't matter much. We just have to move one of them from the starting square. Also, whenever you are up material, you have to somewhat switch your mindset. When you are up material, every capture that's an equal trade is good. Even if it's like bishop, knight, knight, bishop, doesn't matter, bishop, bishop in this case. Every trade is good. Why is that? We are clearly winning. We are up material. If I can just trade, 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 and remove all the pieces from the board, and the endgame, I will have a very simple winning endgame. So that is always my strategy. No checks, no captures, no threats, but I do have optimize. Just get another piece into the game. Again, no checks, no captures, no threats, optimize. We want to get a rook into the game. Same thing. Optimize. And optimize, I'm going to move my queen, because my initial strategy is always to put every single piece that was on the starting position on a different square. That is always my first strategy, which we have done here with every piece except for that rook in the corner. And then once we have moved everything, it is very important. This is the moment where most players go wrong. They start moving pawns here, but no, we don't want to move pawns. We will keep playing with the pieces. So we will keep going through the checks, captures. No, we will never play that. Threats, still not really threats. Optimize. So optimize, once you have optimized every piece, optimize means further improving pieces. So we are going to keep moving the pieces and keep maneuvering, keep proposing trades, keep setting up tricks, and eventually we will have a tactic at some point, or here we are already winning anyways. So I'm going to play rook e5, amazing move. I am proposing a trade of rooks, and I'm also attacking that pawn twice. Okay, they play knight here to c4. I don't know if it really does anything. I don't think so, and I have a capture, which is also an equal trade. So for sure I am going to play that move. Okay. What is the knight doing here? I don't think it's really doing much. We have some back rank threats, but we have a rook there. The bishop might take the knight. Okay, that is something that we need to consider. The move that I am looking at here is actually now rook to e1. And the reason why is, again, we are winning. We have more material, so I'm looking for trades. Rook e1, we just need to do some calculation. Because if they take the knight, we take this, they take, and we take. And we are doubling our pawns. Doubled pawns is not always great, especially not if they are all isolated. That's extremely terrible. But we have a queen versus two knights. We will definitely win that endgame as long as we don't end up getting forked. So yes, this is what I'm going to play. And if they take my rook, which they could have also done, then I just had to recapture with the knight. Okay, they want to make things complicated and attack my queen. It is fine, I'm going to move, and I'm also going to attack that pawn. Alright, and they play pawn here. So again, you can see I'm barely moving any pawns. I'm just focusing on my pieces. No checks, no captures, that makes sense. But I have a threat. I am threatening here to trade. That is going to be my threat. Knight to g4. Finally, we get a trade of the rooks. I have been looking for this rook trade for quite a long time. My queen is actually garbage right here. It's not really doing anything, so I'm going to just move it out of the way. We do have to be a little bit careful with that knight that's hanging there on g5, but I don't really see any issues. I'm just looking now if I can get my queen into the game, because our queen is going to be our most important piece. It is our advantage. So I'm literally playing with my queen. Even in this endgame, I'm not focused too much on pawn moves. I am more focused on optimizing my pieces. And this queen right now, together with this knight, we are first of all tying up these knights in defense, plus we have this threat as well, which makes it hard for them to ever move the bishop. Okay, and they have played this move here. I'm looking still to see if there's any queen move. Not that, not this. Maybe this, queen a7, I think could be good. Because we still have to be a little bit careful, because they have the two knights. So since they have two knights, we might get forked at some point. We don't want that. Here I will just recapture. Okay, and they are forcing me to move, so I will just move my knight. And also set up a little bit of an attack there. Okay, let's see, they are attacking my knight, and if I move, I drop the pawn. That's not great, so let's just move the queen and protect the knight. Okay, so everything fine. And now we are in the endgame, and okay, once we are in the endgame, yes, you can start moving pawns. You have to start moving pawns, basically, in the endgame. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to win an endgame if you don't ever use one of your pawns. Plus, we don't really care about creating weaknesses here, because they barely have pieces to abuse those weaknesses. The question is just which pawn are we going to move, because this one drops. This one, I don't know, might drop as well. Well, I was just thinking, if I follow my checks, captures, threads method, I should actually be looking at this move. I almost forgot, but we always want to do checks, captures, threads. I think I will throw that in first, actually, this check. I almost didn't even see that. That's just a bit of a strange position. Okay, I think now this is fine. Yeah, the only thing is, like, there's not really a benefit from it, I think. Okay, so here I'm looking, is there any pawn move I could make? Like maybe pawn a3 or maybe something, but I have to also watch out that my knight is now hanging. Maybe actually that check wasn't a good move, because now my knight is hanging, but whatever. We are going to figure it out anyways. I'll just move my knight. I think I will just move my knight. The question is, where do we go? Yeah, I'll go to c5. Maybe that check actually wasn't that great, because we ended up losing a pawn there, but it is whatever. I mean, we are winning so badly that it doesn't really matter, so it is okay here. Alright. So what are we going to do? I think these knights are very vulnerable. They are connected to each other, which means that no knight can move, otherwise something drops. So I'm going through the checks, captures, threads method. We have some checks, but I've already seen that all of these checks are quite useless, because everything is well protected. I really like this move, knight b7, which is like a fork. And if they take my knight, I take their knight. And I think this is amazing for us, because the moment that we can get rid of one of those knights, everything will collapse, because now we start having checks. And finally, we can start picking up some free material. And this will really make the endgame easier. So I think we can even pick up that pawn. Alright. And we just have an extra queen. I'm going to just push this so that they never really have anything. So I'm looking to see how can we win this endgame. We will definitely need to activate our queen, and we will also need to start using our pawns, especially these two. We will need to push these two and try to create something there. So I will go back actually with the queen. I'm trying to see if there's any way I can help support this pawn push. Okay, we have the pawn push, and then we have this pawn push. And this is going to make us a new queen, unless if they sack the bishop, which I don't think they will do. So let's push. Okay, so this is already great, because now their king is tied up in defense. It will be time for us to also use our final piece and get our king into the game a little bit. And we want to make sure that we don't drop that pawn. So I'm going to use my king here. Okay. And I'll go here. All right. And I'll show you something which I've really like to do in all my endgames. Sack. Just sack. And sometimes people don't like this strategy because we are just sacking material. But my advice is always, if you see a way to create a very simple endgame which you know is winning, you should always go for it. And this sack just gives us a 3 pawn up endgame, which means we can just make a queen or 3 queens if we want and checkmate. So please try out this strategy and drop a comment to let me know how it went.